Star Trek Picard. I hesitate to talk about this one because, quite honestly, I'm not the biggest Star Trek fan. I've seen a few episodes of each of the original series. The only movies I've seen have been the post J.J. Abrams ones, and from what I hear and read, there's contention to say the least as to whether those really capture what made Star Trek so great in the first place. I also hear that the Orville does a better job of reimagining Star Trek than Star Trek Discovery has, and that makes me really glad I quit Discovery when I did. I think that lasted like 3 episodes. What I would call myself, though, is a Picard fan, and as any Picard fan will tell you, he's a character that transcended Star Trek because of his intelligence, morality, and strength of character. I don't think it would be an understatement to say that over time, he became more of a symbol that embodied and communicated the best aspects of Star Trek to all who are uninitiated. So with that all in mind, my thoughts on the pilot episode of Star Trek Picard are quite mixed. On one hand, it nailed and respected the main man himself. The best scene in the episode would have to be his breakdown as to why he left Starfleet. That captured the essence of Picard in just a few lines, and it gave me assurance that the showrunners seemingly understand what made Picard the character we all know and love. But on the other, pretty much everything else was incredibly mediocre and borderline stupid. I didn't like how fast-paced the episode was. I thought much of the dialogue was forced and awkward. If you stopped and thought about any of the plot, you would realize very little of it made any sense whatsoever. It all just kind of reminded me of Discovery.
This is the power of math, people! Come on!
You are correct, MC.
And that's no bueno. Again, I'm not the biggest Star Trek guy. I know the final shot of the episode was a Borg cube, but I have no clue what the implication of that is supposed to be. Picard was intact and safely brought back to life, and for that reason, I'm along for this last voyage into the final frontier. How long Picard alone can keep me coming back, however, remains to be seen. The Outsider. Well, this has been a wild ride since it began 3 weeks ago. I figured that because this was Stephen King, there was likely going to be a supernatural element to it, and honestly, that kind of worried me. I loved the pilot for what it was. It reminded me of the best aspects of True Detective, and I figured that once the show started delving into those Stephen King spookies, the show was going to lose a lot of its gravitas. Luckily, I was dead wrong, and the paranormal aspects have done nothing but elevate the show and give it a sense of identity all its own. It helps that the direction, cinematography, and editing are all top-notch, because any less than stellar would highlight the absurdity of trying to catch the boogeyman as we understand him now.
Baba Yaga.
That's always been the biggest hurdle for Stephen King's stories, I think. Can his otherworldly premises be brought to life without feeling goofy or cheesy? The linchpin to all of it is Cynthia Erivo's Holly Gibney. Her character is what keeps the boogeyman from feeling obnoxious, because she's the savant who bridges the grounded reality to the absurd supernatural. Without her, watching Ben Mendelsohn's Ralph attempt to piece together this mystery would seem far-fetched and unrealistic. And killing Jason Bateman right off the bat was also a move I'm not sure I would have had the balls to commit to, but they did, and continued to keep me invested despite it. The Outsider continues to be a must-watch, and just based off these 4 episodes we have now, looks to be a major hit for HBO this year. Shameless. It's really hard watching a show you've loved for nearly 10 years be paraded out year after year with no goal, direction, or vision to speak of. Every once in a while, you'll get that little glimpse of what the show once was, and it'll remind you why you fell in love with the Gallaghers in the first place.
Monica would have loved today.
I found a love for me. I should probably go dance with my husband.
Go.
But those little moments become farther and fewer between, and all you're left with is a hollow shell of a story that's trying to replicate what it thinks we like, rather than evolve and grow towards a fitting conclusion. It's not bad, I guess. I'm still watching, so one could say it's entertaining enough, but it is soulless. It feels as if everyone involved is just coasting and happy to be doing so. Lip, Kevin, and V are really the only reason to watch anymore. Lip, because his storyline has remained the most consistent and compelling, while Kevin V remained the biggest source of laughs. And by the way, what happened to V's new best Asian friend? Or Carl's Mexican love interest Anne? Meh, who cares? We got Debbie shenanigans to get back to. Her storylines are always the worst. I can't help but feel bad for Emma Kenny at this point. Whatever, at least we all get to go into the 11th season knowing it'll be its last. And I'll be there, hoping the Gallaghers get to go out with a bang instead of the whimper it's become. Curb Your Enthusiasm. Speaking of bangs, Curb Your Enthusiasm returned with an absolutely hilarious Season 10 opener. I haven't gotten that many laughs from 40 minutes of television since, maybe the glory days of Silicon Valley and Veep airing together. Larry David has never been better, and his fearlessness in facing the entirety of the Me Too movement should be applauded. The second episode last week kept the bar raised as Larry proceeded to mock the ridiculous standards set by the hyperpolarized climate we are currently living in. Curb Your Enthusiasm is as sharp and ballsy as ever, and if Larry David keeps the quality at this level for the rest of the season, we could have a real contender for Season of the Year. Avenue 5. Well, that was kind of a fucking disaster. From the guy who gave us Veep, Armando Giovanni, comes a space survival mission starring Hugh Laurie, Zach Woods, and Josh Gad. The right pieces were all in place, the premise was ingenious, and the talent couldn't have been better. My hopes for this one probably couldn't have been higher. And then I watched that pilot.
Madness and stupidity.
Not a single laugh was had in that entire 30 minutes. And that ending came out of nowhere too. A black screen just smashes over Hugh Laurie, and I honestly had no idea if something went wrong with my file or if it was supposed to be the end of the episode. It all just felt awkward and uncomfortable. Thankfully, I'm willing to give anything time to settle, especially comedies, and the second episode started to form Avenue 5 into something I could see myself possibly, hopefully, enjoying. The gags involving the orbiting coffin, Ryan's flip-flopping accent, and Zach Woods being Zach Woods were legitimately funny. It's probably a bad thing that I can't unsee Jared from Silicon Valley in Zach, but for now, that's what's making him even funnier to watch. Hell, I'm kind of interested to see if this show is up for the challenge of reinventing Zach Woods at the very least. Here's hoping Avenue 5 continues its upwards trajectory after a messy and mishandled launch. If you're still listening, I want to say thanks for taking the time to watch my video. My goal is to get something like this out every week, possibly cycling in different shows, adding new ones, dropping old ones. I want to just get out episodic reviews as much as possible, trying to keep up with the shows as they go along. We'll see how it pans out. Comment down below, tell me what shows you want me to talk about. What are your favorites? What's terrible? What should I look at next? Either way, thanks for listening. Until next time.